The planet's core hummed with an unsettling rhythm, a siren song of destruction waiting for its cue. Ethan Calloway stood alone against the backdrop of a vast, swirling interstellar courtroom, his eyes reflecting the cold light of 1,000 alien judgments. He was a singular silhouette amidst the grandiose display of galactic tribunal might, where the fate of worlds was decided with the flick of a gavel. Human, the Arbiter's voice boomed, a disembodied force that carried across the expanse. You are here as a witness to the weaponization of Ophidian Prime's core. Speak your truth. Ethan took a steadying breath, aware that every gaze was upon him, from the cold, calculating eyes of the Thraxian delegates to the curious, multifaceted orbs of the Elysian observers. His heart raced not from fear, but from the weight of responsibility. The Arbiter continued, its eyes narrowing into a harsh glare. You are the last hope for clemency. Tell us why this weapon should not be unleashed. The core of Ophidian Prime was a marvel of engineering, a relic of a long-dead civilization that had harnessed planetary forces beyond contemporary understanding. It was meant to be a safeguard, a deterrent against the aggressions of an uncaring universe. But now, twisted by war and ambition, it had become a threat to all. The core was never meant to be used as a weapon, Ethan said, his voice firm, echoing across the tribunal. It's a tool for peace, for energy, not for destruction. A ripple of murmurs spread across the chamber, disbelief mingling with skepticism. The Vortari envoy, a serpentine figure with scales that caught the dim light, leaned forward. Do you expect us to believe that humans, who have barely crawled from their own gravity understand its complexity? Ethan met the envoy's gaze without flinching. Underestimation is a mistake, he replied evenly. Humanity has a knack for defying odds. The Arbiter's gavel struck the air, silencing the gathering. Present your evidence, human. Show us why we should trust your words over the actions of the Council's own scientists. With a nod, Ethan activated the holo display embedded in his wrist, projecting intricate schematics of the planet's core. This, he began, navigating the display with practiced ease, is the key to understanding. The core's energy potential is beyond measure, but its stability is fragile. Apply pressure in the wrong place, and it will not just destroy Ophidian Prime, it will destabilize the entire sector. Another murmur, this time of intrigue. The Elysian ambassador, an ethereal being of light and sound, leaned closer, its form shifting in hues of interest. And how do you propose we avert this disaster? That's simple, Ethan said, his voice carrying the weight of knowledge and certainty. Allow me to demonstrate. In the chamber's center, a holographic model of the planet appeared, rotating slowly. Ethan manipulated the interface, and the model responded, illustrating the delicate balance necessary to keep the core stable. This, he said, pointing to a glowing node within the planet's holographic heart, is the crux. Stabilize this, and the core returns to its original function. But overload it. The model flared, simulating a catastrophic chain reaction that radiated outward, erasing entire systems in a cascade of fiery extinction. The room fell silent, the weight of potential calamity hanging heavily in the air. Ethan turned to face the assembly, his voice calm yet urgent. We have a choice. We can either turn this planet into a weapon of mass destruction, or we can restore it to its original purpose, a beacon of hope and advancement. The Arbiter's expression was inscrutable, a mask of contemplation. You speak with conviction, human. But why should we trust that you can control what others cannot? Ethan's eyes met the Arbiter's, unyielding. Because humanity has always thrived amidst chaos. We learn, adapt, and overcome. Underestimate us at your peril. He paused, letting his words sink into the collective consciousness of those who considered him a lesser being. Give me a chance to prove it, he concluded. What's the alternative? Annihilation? The silence that followed was thick with tension, a palpable force that threatened to snap. The fates of millions hung in the balance, and for a moment, the universe held its breath, waiting for the Arbiter's decision. The distant stars shimmered like cold, unblinking eyes watching the unfolding drama aboard the dilapidated vessel, the Iron Horizon. The battered ship hung suspended in the velvet void, its hull a patchwork of hastily welded plates and ancient scars. Inside, a crew of humans faced the kind of crisis that tested the mettle of even the most seasoned spacefarers. Captain Alara Voss stood at the helm, her fingers dancing over the cracked control panel as her eyes narrowed at the flickering holographic display. The readouts were grim. Power levels were plummeting, and life support systems were straining under the weight of their predicament. Yet, it wasn't the mechanical failures that churned her gut with unease. It was the silent, creeping dread of the unknown that loomed just beyond the steel walls of their craft. "Captain, this is the third time this month. It's not a coincidence," Ezra Kane, the ship's engineer, stated bluntly. His voice was tinged with the gravelly edge of a man who spoke more often to machines than to people. Alara glanced at him, her expression inscrutable. "You think someone's targeting us?" Ezra nodded, his eyes hidden beneath the brim of a well-worn hat. "It's either that or the universe has developed a personal vendetta." The ship shuddered, a mechanical groan echoing through the corridors. Alara tightened her grip on the console, her mind racing through potential solutions. "We need to get to the bottom of this, Ezra. We can't keep running blind." Their thoughts were interrupted by an urgent beep. A comms signal, weak but insistent, crackled to life. "Iron Horizon, this is Marshal Terrian of the Galactic Frontier Corps. Do you read?" Alara exchanged a glance with Ezra before responding. "This is Captain Voss. We read you, Marshal. What's your status?" The voice that returned was strained, laden with the weariness of someone who had seen too much. "We've picked up distress signals from several human settlements in the sector. Reports of attacks. We're stretched thin, Captain." "Attacks?" Alara's voice tightened. "By whom?" There was a pause, heavy with implication. "Pirates, they say. But I've never seen pirates with this level of organization. It feels deliberate." A heavy silence settled in the cockpit, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them. The universe was vast and largely indifferent, but here and now, the stakes were intensely personal. Alara leaned forward, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "What do you need from us, Marshal?" "Intel, reconnaissance. The Frontier Corps can't be everywhere at once. We need eyes and ears out there, Captain. And frankly, not many ships would dare venture into those territories." Ezra snorted softly, his lips curving into a cynical smile. "Lucky for you, we're not most ships." "Exactly my thought," Marshal Terrian replied. "I'm sending coordinates now. Check it out and report back." As the comms went silent, Alara turned to her crew. "This isn't just about us anymore. If what the Marshal says is true, then we're up against something bigger." Ezra nodded, his gaze drifting to the ship's dim interior. "We'll need to get the engines back to full capacity. And we're running low on supplies." Alara's mind whirred, weighing their options. "We'll make do. We always have." A few hours later, the Iron Horizon sliced through the darkness of space, its engines sputtering defiantly with each pulse. The coordinates from the Marshal led them to the edge of a sprawling asteroid field, a place known for its treacherous navigation but also for the secrets it harbored. Here, amidst the floating debris, the truth awaited. Approaching the designated coordinates, called out Jax, their pilot, a wiry figure with fingers that danced across the controls with an artist's precision. "There's something out there, Captain." Alara leaned over his shoulder, peering at the readings. A massive structure loomed ahead, half concealed by the drifting rocks. It was a space station, old and derelict, yet there was a subtle hum of energy emanating from its core. "Looks like we found ourselves a ghost ship," Alara murmured, her eyes narrowing. "Not entirely," Ezra added, pointing at a series of faint heat signatures clustered around the station. "There's life in there, a lot of it." Jax frowned, adjusting the sensors. "Too many for a station that size. They're packed in like sardines." Alara's mind raced, connecting dots in the vast, invisible web of intrigue. "Slavers? Or worse," Ezra replied grimly. "We should get a closer look." With a deft touch, Jax guided the Iron Horizon through the asteroid field, evading the larger rocks with a practiced ease. As they approached the station, it became clear that this was no ordinary pirate hideout. The structure bristled with makeshift defenses, jury-rigged weapons welded onto its exterior. "Someone's expecting trouble," Jax muttered, eyes fixed on the display. Alara nodded, her gaze sweeping over the station. "Prepare for boarding. We need to find out what's going on in there." The crew moved with practiced efficiency, donning their gear and arming themselves with an array of weapons scavenged from countless encounters. As the ship docked with the station's airlock, a tense silence enveloped them. The kind that comes before a storm. Ezra was the first to breach the threshold, his stance radiating the kind of confidence only experience could forge. "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into." The corridors of the station were dimly lit, shadows pooling in the corners and flickering in the artificial light. The air was stale, tinged with the metallic scent of recycled oxygen and something more sinister, fear. The crew moved in formation, covering each other in a silent ballet of trust and anticipation. As they delved deeper, the signs of life became more apparent. A cacophony of hushed voices echoed through the walls, the sounds of a people bound by chains both physical and metaphorical. In a central chamber, they found them. Humans packed into cells, eyes wide with a mixture of desperation and defiance. As Alara and her crew approached, a ripple of hope seemed to pass through the prisoners, like a breeze stirring the ashes of long-dead fires. One of the captives, an older woman with a face etched in lines of resilience, stepped forward to the bars. "Who are you?" Alara met her gaze, her voice calm and resolute. "We're here to help." The woman's eyes narrowed, suspicion warring with hope. "You're not with the Slavers?" Ezra shook his head, his expression hardening. "We're against everything they stand for." A murmur of relief spread through the prisoners, their postures relaxing as they absorbed the news. But Alara knew they were far from safe. "How do we get you out?" she asked, scanning the crude locks on the cells. The older woman gestured toward a control panel near the chamber's entrance. "You'll need to override the security systems. But be careful, the Slavers have rigged the place to blow if anyone tries to tamper with it." "Of course they have," Ezra muttered, already moving toward the panel with a determined stride. As he worked, Alara kept watch, her senses heightened by the knowledge that danger lurked around every corner. The crew formed a protective barrier between the prisoners and any potential threat. Time stretched, each second heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Finally, with a triumphant nod, Ezra stepped back from the panel. "Got it. Doors should open now." The clanging of cell doors echoed through the chamber, a sound like freedom taking its first breath. The prisoners surged forward, a tide of humanity reclaiming their agency. But as they moved to make their escape, the station shuddered violently, alarms blaring in a deafening crescendo. The Slavers were retaliating, and they wouldn't let their prize slip away without a fight. "Move, everyone," Alara shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to get back to the ship." The crew herded the prisoners down the narrow corridors, adrenaline fueling their flight. Behind them, the station groaned ominously, the threat of imminent destruction looming ever closer. As they reached the docking bay, the unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the other end of the corridor. Slavers, armed and ready to defend their territory. "Jax, get the engines ready," Alara barked, drawing her weapon as she turned to face the imminent threat. Ezra and the others followed suit, forming a defensive line. The Slavers emerged from the shadows, their faces masked and weapons drawn. A tense standoff ensued, the air crackling with the potential for violence. Alara's heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. "We don't want to fight," she called out, her voice firm but fair. "But we will if we have to." The leader of the Slavers stepped forward, a hulking figure with a voice that dripped contempt. "You've meddled in affairs you don't understand, human. Leave now, and we might let you live." Alara's gaze was unyielding, a steel tempered by conviction. "These people deserve their freedom. We're not leaving without them." A cruel smile twisted the slaver's lips. "Then you've sealed your fate." The ensuing battle was a blur of movement and sound, a cacophony of gunfire and shouted commands. Alara and her crew fought with the desperation of those who knew there was no turning back, their actions a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Amidst the chaos, the prisoners surged toward the waiting ship, guided by Jax's urgent gestures. The Iron Horizon was their salvation, a beacon in the tempest that threatened to consume them all. Ezra fought with the tenacity of a man who had spent his life defying the odds, his every movement a testament to hard-earned skill. Beside him, Alara moved with a grace that belied the sheer force of her determination. As the last of the prisoners clambered aboard, Alara and her crew made their retreat, covering each other with a precision born of trust and necessity. The Iron Horizon roared to life, its engines a defiant scream against the encroaching dark. With a final surge, the ship broke free from the station's grip, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a promise of hope. As they soared into the safety of space, Alara allowed herself a moment of reflection. The crisis was far from over, and the forces arrayed against them were formidable. But for now, they had won a small victory, a flicker of light in a universe that often seemed devoid of it. In the quiet aftermath, Ezra joined her at the helm, his gaze thoughtful. "We're in deep now, Captain." Alara nodded, her eyes fixed on the stars. "Deeper than ever, but we're not alone." Ezra followed her gaze, the endless expanse of space stretching out before them. In the face of uncertainty, one truth remained. Humanity had always thrived when pushed to its limits. And they would continue to do so, no matter the cost. The vastness of space was a canvas of absolute black, speckled with the cold, distant fire of stars. A lone ship, the Vigilance Asterisk, drifted silently through this void, its metallic hull gleaming faintly in the starlight. Within its confines, John Carter found himself at the epicenter of a conflict that spanned the breadth of the galaxy, a trial whose outcome could shift the balance of power across the cosmos. John was no stranger to the solitude of space, nor to the peculiarities of the alien species that populated the galaxy. Yet, as the only human granted a voice in this interstellar court, he felt the weight of his insignificance more keenly than ever. The trial was a matter of galactic consequence, a complex tapestry of alliances and enmities, threading through layers of history that stretched back millennia. He was but a single thread in this vast weave, tasked with speaking truths that might unravel the entire fabric. He sat in the dimly lit cabin, a modest space cluttered with relics of Earth, a worn paperback, a tarnished harmonica, a faded photograph of a verdant landscape. These tokens were his anchor, reminders of the world that had birthed him, a world now seen through the lens of nostalgia and longing. His solitude was interrupted by the soft chime of the ship's communication system. The holographic visage of Arya, the ship's AI and his only companion on this voyage, flickered to life. "John," she began, her voice a symphony of warmth and precision, "we have received a transmission from the Galactic Tribunal. They are convening earlier than anticipated." John rubbed his temples, feeling the familiar tension building at the prospect of the trial. "What's the urgency, Arya? Did they say?" The message was cryptic, but it seems there are new developments in the case against the Karathi sovereignty. The implications could be significant. The Karathi, a formidable species with an empire spanning numerous star systems, were the central figures in this trial. Accused of violations that threatened the stability of the galaxy, their defense was as formidable as their reputation. The tribunal, an assembly of representative species, was a tapestry of conflicting interests, with humans a mere footnote. Yet, it was John's testimony, as a witness to a pivotal event, that had the potential to sway the judgment. "Great," John muttered, as if we weren't already out of our depth. Arya's holographic eyes seemed to soften. "John, you must remember why you were chosen. Your perspective, your insight, these are not to be underestimated." "Maybe," he replied, doubt clinging to his words like a shadow. "But when you're up against species that have been navigating the stars for eons, it's hard to see how a single human can make a difference." The Vigilance continued its journey, the vastness of the cosmos a silent witness to John's inner turmoil. The tribunal was held on Zaros Prime, a planet of stark beauty, its skies a swirling dance of color and light. The Great Hall of Deliberation was an architectural marvel, a convergence of alien aesthetics that defied human comprehension. As John stood before the assembly, he felt like a grain of sand before a tidal wave, an insignificant speck against a backdrop of power and history. The trial commenced with an air of solemnity. The Karathi delegation, with their imposing stature and imperious demeanor, occupied a space of prominence. Their leader, High Chancellor Virak, exuded an aura of authority, his gaze a piercing probe that seemed to strip away pretense and reveal the essence beneath. John's testimony was met with skepticism, his words dissected and analyzed with an intensity that left him feeling exposed and vulnerable. The Karathi's defense was a masterclass in rhetoric, turning accusations into questions, questions into doubts. The tribunal was a stage upon which they performed with practiced precision, and John felt the inadequacy of his own role. Yet, as the proceedings unfolded, he found allies in unexpected places. Among the representatives was Leora of the Erythians, a species known for their empathic abilities. Her presence was a balm, a reminder that the tribunal was not a monolith but a collection of individuals, each with their own biases and beliefs. During a recess, Leora approached him. Her eyes, an iridescent swirl, held a look of understanding. "Do not despair, John Carter. The truth you carry is a beacon, and there are those here who see its light." John managed a wan smile. "I appreciate the support, Leora, but I'm up against centuries of tradition and power." How can one man's truth stand against that? It is precisely because you are an outsider that your perspective is valuable. You see the cracks in the facade, the flaws that familiarity hides from those within. As they spoke, an unexpected complication arose. News spread through the tribunal of unrest within the Karathi territories, rebellions, uprisings, a sudden fracture in their seemingly unassailable unity. The timing was suspect, the implications profound. John couldn't shake the feeling of being a pawn in a larger game. So, the Karathi are dealing with their own problems now. What does that mean for us? It complicates matters, Arya interjected, her voice resonating from the communicator. The tribunal may view their instability as both a threat and an opportunity. It adds layers to the already intricate political landscape. Leora nodded. The Karathi's strength has always been their unity. If that is compromised, it could shift the tribunal's stance. John felt a flicker of hope, quickly dampened by the enormity of the situation. And what about us? What about humanity's place in all this? Humanity's potential is not yet fully realized, Arya replied, her holographic form shimmering beside him. You are adaptable, resilient. These qualities have served you well in the past and will continue to do so. As the trial continued, John found himself increasingly overwhelmed by the complexity of the proceedings. The Karathi were adept at exploiting every nuance, every flaw in the arguments against them. The tribunal, a body of countless voices, was a cacophony of opinions and agendas, each pulling in different directions. In a moment of desperation, John found solace in the familiar rhythm of his harmonica. The notes, a melancholy tune from Earth, filled the small cabin of the Asterisk Vigilance. It was a song of longing, of hope and despair intertwined, a reminder of the beauty and fragility of life. Arya's presence was a steadying influence. John, do not lose sight of why you are here. The path is fraught with challenges, but you have faced them before. He sighed, lowering the harmonica. It's so much bigger than I ever imagined. I thought I understood what I was getting into, but this. You are not alone, she reminded him. You have allies, and there is strength in unity. The trial's final day dawned with a sense of foreboding. The great hall was a tempest of debate, the air heavy with the gravity of the decision that lay before them. As John took his place, he felt the eyes of the galaxy upon him, a multitude of expectations pressing down like a shroud. In a moment of quiet reflection, he recalled the stories of humanity's past, those tales of perseverance, of triumph against insurmountable odds. They were stories of people who had faced the darkness and refused to yield, who had carved their destiny from the raw material of adversity. As the tribunal reached its verdict, John stood, a solitary figure amidst the grandeur of the hall. The judgment, whatever it would be, was beyond his control now. All that remained was to bear witness, to stand as a testament to the resilience of his species. The decision, when it came, was not the ending he had imagined. It was a compromise, a delicate balance of justice and pragmatism. The Karathi were held accountable, but their sovereignty remained intact. The fractures within their empire would be theirs to mend or to let crumble. In the aftermath, John felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. The trial had been but one chapter in a story that continued to unfold, a narrative of interstellar consequence that dwarfed the scope of his own existence. As he prepared to depart Zaro's Prime, Leora found him once more. You have done well, John Carter. The galaxy has taken note of your presence, and the ripples of your actions will spread far and wide. Maybe, he replied, the weight of his experiences etched into his voice. But it's hard to feel like I made a difference. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to the greater whole. You have shown what humanity is capable of, and that is no small feat. As the Vigilance set a course for Earth, John took a moment to reflect on the journey that lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, its mysteries unfathomable, its challenges daunting. But within that vastness, there was a place for humanity, a place forged not by power or domination, but by the simple, enduring strength of the human spirit. The stars stretched out before him, a tapestry of light and shadow, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that awaited. And as the ship surged forward, propelled by hope and determination, John Carter embraced the uncertainty of the future, ready to face whatever lay beyond the horizon. The harsh red sun hung low in the dusty sky as the settlers of Outpost Aurora huddled together, shadows lengthening like dark fingers across the cracked earth. The twin moons, one a sliver and the other gibbous, began their nightly ascent, casting a wan luminescence over the sparse landscape. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable energy that seemed to hum in the dry air. Ever since the consortium's drones had been spotted on the horizon, the once quiet frontier had become a potential battleground. Sarah Pike, the de facto leader of the settlers, stood atop the small rise overlooking the settlement, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind her, the rough-hewn timber and metal structures of Outpost Aurora were silent, save for the occasional creak or rustle in the wind. They all knew the consortium's reputation: ruthless, methodical, and relentless in their pursuit of control over this mineral-rich planet. It was only a matter of time before they made their move. She turned to face the gathered settlers, each one a study of grit and resolve. They were farmers, miners, engineers, and dreamers, drawn here by the promise of a new beginning far from the crumbling relics of Earth. Yet, as they faced this looming threat, their unity was tested, and Sarah could feel the cracks forming in their resolve. "We can't fight them head-on," Sarah said, her voice carrying on the brisk wind. "But we can outthink them. We know this land, its quirks and secrets. Let's use that to our advantage." From the crowd, a grizzled miner named Jacob stepped forward. His skin was etched with the lines of a hard life, his eyes sharp and calculating. "They've got drones and tech we can't match," he said. "But remember how we rigged those old mining rigs to work double time? We can do the same here, turn their tech against them." Nods of agreement spread through the crowd. It was an echo of what made humanity special: the ability to adapt, to improvise with whatever was at hand. Yet, the weight of their predicament bore down heavily. The consortium's reach was long, and their resources seemingly endless. As if in response to their thoughts, the ground trembled, a low rumble that grew into a cacophony as a fleet of sleek, silver drones descended from the sky, their metallic bodies glinting in the moonlight. They formed a perimeter around the settlement, a silent, hovering threat. The settlers watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension, knowing these machines could level their homes in moments. "Stay calm," Sarah urged, though her own heart raced. "We have the element of surprise. Let's use it wisely." Inside the settlement's makeshift command center, a nervous energy crackled. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and ozone as settlers worked feverishly to modify their tools and machinery. Old, obsolete technology was repurposed, transformed into traps and distractions. Mary, a young engineer with a knack for electronics, had been hunched over a console for hours. She glanced up, wiping a smudge of grease from her cheek. "I've hacked into their comms," she announced. "We can't control them, but we can listen in." Sarah nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. "Good, let's find out what they're planning." The chatter from the drones was a cacophony of digital voices, a language of code and command that Mary deftly translated. The consortium's strategy unfolded before them: an encirclement, a gradual tightening of the noose until the settlers had no choice but to surrender or be destroyed. But amidst the mechanical precision, there were gaps, moments of static and delay. "They're not as seamless as they seem," Mary noted. "We can exploit those gaps." As they strategized, the personal stakes were never far from the surface. Relationships strained under the pressure. Sarah felt the weight of leadership more keenly with each passing hour. Her decisions carried the potential for life or death, not just for herself but for everyone she had come to care for in this harsh, beautiful land. Below the surface of strategic planning lay raw, human emotions. Sarah and Jacob, old friends with an unspoken bond, found themselves at odds. Jacob's pragmatism clashed with Sarah's idealism, each trying to pull the other toward their vision of survival. Their conversations, once easy and full of shared dreams, now bristled with tension. "You're too focused on the big picture," Jacob argued during one of their heated debates. "We need to think small, move fast, or we're done for." "And if we only think small, we lose sight of what we're fighting for," Sarah countered, her resolve firm yet her heart aching at the rift growing between them. As night deepened, the settlers deployed their hastily constructed defenses. Booby traps were set and decoys strategically placed. They worked tirelessly, driven by the knowledge that their lives depended on these makeshift creations. The lines between ingenuity and desperation blurred, each moment a testament to human adaptability. At dawn, the first assault came. The drones advanced, their sleek forms cutting through the morning mist. The settlers held their breath, waiting for the machinery of war to spring into action. It was a chaotic dance of strategy and counter-strategy, humans versus machines, improvisation battling precision. The traps were sprung, and for a moment, it seemed as if the settlers might hold their own. One drone fell, then another, caught in the web of human cunning. But the triumph was fleeting. The consortium's response was swift and brutal, recalibrating their strategy with chilling efficiency. The settlers' temporary advantage crumbled under the relentless advance. As the dust settled, the reality of their situation became starkly clear. The defenses had barely slowed the drones. The settlement itself was intact, but the psychological toll was immense. The settlers' faith in their ability to resist was shaken, and with it, the fragile bonds holding them together. In the aftermath, Sarah gathered the survivors. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the exhaustion gnawing at her spirit. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," she said, "but we have something they don't: the will to endure. We adapt, we learn, and we keep fighting because we believe in what we're building here." Her words were met with silence, a silence that spoke of fear and doubt. Yet beneath the surface, a spark remained. It was human nature to hope, to dream even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Jacob approached Sarah, the tension between them momentarily set aside. "We need a new plan," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Something they won't expect." Sarah nodded, the weight of leadership heavy on her shoulders. "Agreed, but we can't do this alone. We need every mind, every hand." They reached out to the settlers, convening a council. Ideas flowed, some wild, others grounded in reality. A collective brainstorming session that pulled from the diverse backgrounds and experiences of each settler. It was messy, chaotic, but it was also uniquely human, a testament to their resilience and ingenuity. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jonah, a quiet botanist with a penchant for lateral thinking, proposed using the planet's unique flora. The native plants had evolved defense mechanisms against predators, releasing spores that interfered with electronic signals. It was a long shot, but worth trying. The settlers mobilized, gathering the plants and extracting their spores. It was a race against time, each moment fraught with tension as the drones prepared for their next assault. They worked under the cover of night, their silhouettes moving like shadows against the harsh landscape. As dawn approached, the settlers set their trap. The spores, carried by the wind, spread through the air. The first drones to encounter the cloud wobbled, their movements erratic. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. But the consortium was relentless. They recalibrated, adapting faster than anyone had anticipated. The settlers' advantage was temporary, and soon the drones resumed their advance with renewed precision. As the sun climbed higher, its relentless heat beating down on the beleaguered settlers, the situation grew dire. The drones pressed their advantage, an unstoppable tide of metal and malice. The settlers, exhausted and outmatched, fought with everything they had, but it was not enough. In their darkest hour, as hope seemed to slip away, Sarah stood at the forefront, her face a mask of determination. She knew that they had reached a pivotal moment, a point where everything they fought for hung in the balance. Her voice, steady and clear, cut through the chaos. "We're not done yet," she declared, her words carrying the weight of defiance and resolve. "As long as we're here, we fight. We adapt. We endure." The settlers rallied, a fierce determination igniting within them. They were battered, beleaguered, but not broken. It was a testament to their spirit, the indomitable will that had brought them to this unforgiving frontier. Yet, deep down, Sarah knew they were running out of time. The drones were relentless, the consortium's grip tightening with each passing moment. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the settlement, a sobering realization settled over them. They had reached the precipice, the edge of survival. The fight was not over, but the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. It was a moment of reckoning, a test of everything they were and everything they believed in. And as the darkness gathered, the settlers of Outpost Aurora stood together, united in their resolve, aware that their greatest challenge, and their greatest opportunity for triumph, lay in the unknown depths of the human spirit. The twin suns of the Cerulean system hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the barren expanse of the planet Rawhide. The settlement of Outpost 37, a half-buried cluster of domes and steel, trembled under the weight of a looming siege. A ragtag band of human settlers, farmers, and ex-soldiers huddled in makeshift bunkers, their eyes fixed on the horizon. The enemy, an armada of Xyloxian war machines painted the sky with their sinister silhouettes. Inside the command dome, a worn-out holographic map flickered with static. Captain Elise Morgan, a woman whose face bore the lines of countless battles, stood with her fists clenched at her sides. Her once pristine uniform was now a patchwork of sweat and dust. Around her, a handful of officers gathered, their faces a canvas of despair and determination. "The Xyloxians are massing for a final assault," Elise said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "Their numbers are overwhelming." Lieutenant Jax Anders, a wiry man with a sharp wit and sharper temper, snorted. "Always have been. We knew this day would come since they first darkened our doorstep." Elise nodded. "We have two choices: surrender or stand our ground." "Surrender's not in my vocabulary," Jax replied, crossing his arms defiantly. "Nor mine," Elise agreed. Her gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of each officer in turn. Each nodded, a silent vow of solidarity. Outside, the wind carried the distant rumble of Xyloxian engines. Elise knew their enemy was confident, dismissing the human resistance as little more than a nuisance. The aliens, with their towering, insectoid frames and advanced technology, saw themselves as the inevitable victors. "We've got something they don't," said a voice from the back, gravelly with age. Jeremiah Rook, the settlement's oldest inhabitant, leaned on his cane, a relic of simpler times. "They ain't got our spirit." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a comforting blanket. Elise nodded, her resolve hardening. Spirit, ingenuity, and the will to fight until our last breath. She turned to Jax. "We need to rig the mines around the perimeter. If they want to reach us, they'll have to pay for every inch." Jax grinned wolfishly. "I'll see to it, Captain. Won't know what hit him." As he left, Elise turned to the rest of her team. "We need to bolster our defenses. Use whatever we can find. We'll hold this line, no matter what." Jeremiah tapped his cane thoughtfully. "The Xyloxians might have numbers, but they lack imagination. That's our edge. Let's give them a lesson in human creativity." Hours bled into one another as the settlers worked tirelessly, welding scrap metal into barricades, rigging explosives, and setting traps. The air buzzed with tension, each heartbeat a countdown to the impending assault. Yet, beneath the surface of fear, there was a flicker of hope, fragile but unyielding. Elise stood atop the central dome, scanning the horizon through binoculars. In the distance, dust plumes marked the approach of the Xyloxian force. She pressed a finger to her earpiece. "All units, report." A chorus of voices crackled back, each a thread in the tapestry of their defense. Despite the odds, they were ready, fueled by a stubborn defiance that only grew stronger with each passing moment. The first wave hit with thunderous force, a tide of alien machines crashing against the human defenses. Explosions lit up the desert, casting eerie shadows across the landscape. The air pulsed with the sound of gunfire, a symphony of survival. Inside the command dome, Elise coordinated the defense, her mind a whirlwind of strategy and hope. Each victory, no matter how small, was a testament to human resilience. She could feel the Xyloxian arrogance, their belief in an easy conquest, beginning to falter. "They underestimated us," Jeremiah muttered beside her, his eyes alight with a fierce pride. "Let them," Elise replied. "Their overconfidence is our weapon." Outside, the battle raged on, a clash of determination against brute force. The settlers fought with everything they had, their spirits unbroken. Yet, the tide of Xyloxians seemed endless, a relentless wave threatening to drown them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in twilight, the Xyloxians regrouped for another assault. Elise knew they were testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. Each attack was more ferocious than the last, but the humans held their ground, refusing to yield. "We need a miracle," Jax said, returning from the front lines, his face smudged with dirt and sweat. Elise nodded, her mind racing for solutions. "We might have one. Remember the old mining tunnels beneath the settlement?" Jax raised an eyebrow. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "We can collapse them," Elise said, a plan forming in her mind. "Create a sinkhole right under their feet." Jax grinned, a gleam of mischief in his eyes. "Now that's the kind of crazy idea I like." Together, they set to work, coordinating with the engineers and demolition teams. It was a gamble, a high-stakes bet with everything on the line. If it worked, they could turn the tide. If it failed, they might be sealing their own fate. As the final preparations were made, Elise took a moment to gaze at the stars. Infinite, eternal, a reminder of humanity's place in the cosmos. Their struggle was but a speck in the vastness of space, yet it mattered. It mattered because they chose to make it matter. The Xyloxians launched their next wave, a concerted push to break through the human lines. Elise waited until the bulk of their forces were over the tunnels before giving the order. Now, the ground shuddered violently as the explosives detonated, collapsing the tunnels and creating a massive sinkhole. The Xyloxian machines toppled and fell, swallowed by the earth itself. Cheers erupted from the defenders, a sound of defiance and triumph. But the battle was far from over. The Xyloxians, though staggered, were not defeated. Their command ship, a monolithic presence in the sky, hovered ominously, directing the assault with cold efficiency. Elise knew they had bought time, but the odds were still against them. Yet, in that moment, she felt a surge of hope. They had shown the Xyloxians that humans were not to be underestimated. They had proven that against all odds, they would fight back. The human spirit, tenacious and unyielding, refused to be crushed. They had reached the breaking point, where everything could change. The seeds of resurgence had been sown, and though the night was dark, dawn was inevitable. As the dust settled, Elise stood resolute, her gaze fixed on the enemy above. "This isn't over," she declared, her voice a promise, a vow. "We'll keep fighting. We'll find a way." And she knew, deep within her soul, that they would. For in the heart of every human burned a flame that no darkness could extinguish. A flame of hope, of courage, of indomitable will. It was this flame that would light their path through the darkest hour, leading them towards the dawn of a new day. The twin suns of the Resis system cast an unearthly glow across the dusty plains, painting the landscape in shades of burnt orange and deep amethyst. The air shimmered with the heat, and the distant hum of machinery resonated like a distant thunderstorm growing in intensity. Beneath this alien sky, the small settlement of Outpost 47 stood defiantly, its structures cobbled together from the remnants of a dozen different worlds, each piece a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit and resourcefulness. Inside the largest structure, a makeshift command center, Captain Mara Voss surveyed the holographic map with a mix of frustration and determination. The Ingrath, a coalition of species with advanced technology and a predilection for conquest, had tightening their grip on the sector. Though humanity had weathered their assaults for years, the latest incursion threatened to finally uproot them from the system. "Captain, the patrol's report increased Engrath activity to the north," said Lieutenant Jax, a wiry young officer with a sharp mind and a quick wit. "Looks like they're sizing us up for a full assault." Mara nodded, her gaze fixed on the flickering representation of their beleaguered settlement. "It's only a matter of time before they test our defenses," she replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "But we're not going down without a fight. We have something they don't." "And what's that?" Jax asked, though he already had a suspicion. Mara said simply. "They've underestimated what we're capable of." Beyond the perimeter of the outpost, the landscape stretched into the horizon, a seemingly barren wasteland punctuated by jagged rock formations and dust devils swirling in the dry air. Yet, hidden beneath this harsh exterior, lay the secret to their resilience. Humanity had always thrived by adapting, by turning adversity into advantage. It was a lesson hard learned over centuries of conflict and exploration. Mara, like so many others in the scattered human colonies, had grown up hearing tales of Earth's past triumphs and tragedies. The legacy of ingenuity and perseverance ran deep, a current that connected them all across the vast expanse of space. Her mind wandered back to her own ancestors, who once faced odds just as dire on their homeworld, and yet each time they found a way to prevail. "Have the engineers finished with the modifications to the shield generators?" Mara asked, turning her attention back to the task at hand. "Almost," Jax replied, tapping at his datapad. "They've repurposed some of the old mining equipment to augment the shielding with an electromagnetic pulse. Should give the Ingrath a nasty surprise when they try to breach it." Mara allowed herself a grim smile. "Good. Make sure they know we're ready for them." As Jax relayed her orders, Mara turned to the viewport, watching as the settlers went about their preparations with quiet determination. Each person had a role to play, each action a thread in the tapestry of their survival. It was a sight that filled her with a rare sense of hope. Meanwhile, far above the settlement, the Ingrath flagship hung in orbit like a predatory bird, its sleek silhouette cast against the backdrop of stars. Within its command center, Overseer Kriltak reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans had proven to be a more resilient foe than anticipated. Their defenses, though primitive by Ingrath standards, had held longer than predicted, and their numbers showed no signs of dwindling despite the pressure of the siege. Overseer, the humans' persistence is unexpected, observed First Officer Zaorn, a being of cold logic and precise calculation. They adapt with remarkable speed. Kriltak's mandibles clicked in irritation, a sign of the internal conflict he felt. Indeed, he conceded, it seems we have underestimated their tenacity. But they are still inferior. Zaorn hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty flickering in his usually unwavering demeanor. Perhaps, Overseer, it would be prudent to reassess our approach. The humans possess an unpredictable quality that defies our models. The Overseer considered this, his gaze shifting to the holographic display of Outpost 47. How could a species so fragmented and disparate pose such a challenge? It was a question that gnawed at him, compelling him to delve deeper into the mystery of human resilience. As the moments ticked away, the Ingrath preparations for the impending assault continued. Their forces, composed of genetically engineered warriors and cutting-edge technology, were the pinnacle of what their civilization had achieved. Yet, as they moved into position, a sense of unease pervaded the fleet, a whisper of doubt in the face of the unknown. Back at the outpost, the air hummed with anticipation. The settlers, fortified with makeshift barricades and armed with ingenuity as much as weaponry, awaited the oncoming storm. Mara moved among them, offering words of encouragement and quiet resolve. She knew all too well the weight of leadership in such dire times, but she also knew the strength that lay within her people. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the first wave of the Ingrath assault descended upon them. Mara watched as the night sky was set ablaze with streaks of energy bolts and the fiery trails of descending dropships. The ground shook with the impact, and alarms blared through the outpost. All units, hold your positions. Mara ordered over the comms, her voice cutting through the chaos like a beacon. Remember your training and trust in each other. We can do this. The settlers responded with an unwavering chorus of acknowledgments, their resolve as unyielding as the mountains that cradled their settlement. The first wave hit hard, the Ingrath soldiers pouring into the fray with mechanical precision. Yet the humans met them with equal fervor, their defenses bolstered by the ingenuity of their modifications. Hidden among the rocks, small squads of engineers deployed the electromagnetic pulse devices, creating fields that disrupted the Ingrath's sophisticated targeting systems. The invaders faltered, their advance momentarily stalled by the unexpected tactic. Mara watched with a fierce pride as her people fought with everything they had. They wielded weapons cobbled together from scavenged parts, turning the Ingrath's own technology against them in a dance of creativity and survival. And as the battle raged on, it became clear that the humans had something more than just technology on their side, they had heart. In the chaos of the skirmish, Mara found herself face to face with an Ingrath soldier. The alien loomed over her, its exoskeleton gleaming with menacing intent. But Mara, undeterred, met its challenge with a surge of adrenaline and determination. She ducked beneath its swing, using her smaller size to her advantage, and drove her blade into the vulnerable joint of its armor. As the soldier fell, Mara felt a surge of triumph, not just for herself, but for all her people. This was the turning point, a moment when the tide began to shift, when the impossible seemed within reach. And high above, aboard the Ingrath flagship, Overseer Kriltak watched the unfolding battle with a growing sense of dread. The humans were not just surviving, they were pushing back with a ferocity and ingenuity that defied all expectations. It was as if they thrived on adversity, drawing strength from the very challenges meant to break them. Overseer, Zaorn said quietly, it seems our assumptions about the humans were flawed. Kriltak nodded slowly, the weight of that realization settling heavily upon him. Indeed, we must rethink our strategy, for it is clear that these humans are not to be underestimated. The Overseer's mind raced with new possibilities, each one tinged with the irksome specter of human unpredictability. He had underestimated them once, but he would not do so again. The humans had shown their true strength, and it was a force to be reckoned with. Back on the ground, the battle raged on, but the settlers of Outpost 47 fought with newfound vigor. As the Engrath forces began to retreat, Mara felt the shift in momentum, a palpable energy that coursed through the ranks of her people. They had done what seemed impossible, they had turned the tide. With the dawn of a new day, the remnants of the Engrath assault lay scattered across the landscape, a testament to humanity's resilience. The settlers, weary but unbowed, stood together, their faces marked with the grime of battle but also with a glimmer of hope. Mara surveyed the aftermath with a mixture of pride and determination. They had proven themselves in the crucible of conflict, but the fight was far from over. The Engrath would return, undoubtedly with new strategies and tactics, but now the humans were prepared. As the settlers began the arduous task of fortifying their defenses and tending to the wounded, Mara knew that this victory was not just about survival. It was about proving to themselves, and to the universe, that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, a force fueled by creativity, courage, and an unyielding spirit. In the quiet moments that followed, Mara found herself gazing at the horizon, the twin suns rising once more to bathe the land in their warm embrace. It was a new day, filled with uncertainty and challenge, but also with promise. The humans had shown their strength, and in doing so, they had lit a spark that would not be easily extinguished. For the first time in a long while, Mara allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought of the stories that would be told of this day, of how humanity had stood against the odds and emerged victorious. These were not just stories of survival, but of triumph against adversity, of rising to the occasion when all seemed lost. And so, the tale of Outpost 47 would spread, a beacon of hope in a galaxy teetering on the brink. It would serve as a reminder that humanity, for all its flaws and frailties, possessed an indomitable will that could not be easily broken. It was a lesson the Engrath and any others who sought to challenge them would do well to remember. As the settlement began to stir with the first light of day, Mara turned away from the horizon and rejoined her people, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had proven themselves, now and always, they were a force to be reckoned with, capable of defying the odds and carving their place among the stars. The sky above New Terra was a vast expanse of deep indigo, speckled with the distant light of stars and the occasional trail of comet tails. The twin moons hung like silent sentinels, casting a silvery glow across the dusty plains. Beneath this celestial canopy, the final confrontation unfolded, a stage set for the improbable yet unmistakable triumph of humanity. Captain Eleanor Hart stood at the precipice of destiny, her figure silhouetted against the rising dawn. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, took in the expanse of the alien armada, their sleek ships glinting menacingly in the early light. The Zalthar, masters of deception and technological prowess, had vastly underestimated the resolve of the human spirit. Their misjudgment was about to be realized in full. "All systems are operational, Captain," a voice crackled over the comms. It was Lieutenant Arjun Patel, stationed aboard the Heart of Orion, the flagship of Earth's fleet. "We're ready," Eleanor nodded, her mind a battlefield of thoughts and strategies honed through years of conflict and survival. The Zalthar had arrogantly assumed that humanity, fragmented and disparate, would crumble before their onslaught. But they had not accounted for the tenacity that ran like a current through the veins of every human being. They had underestimated the capacity for innovation and the unyielding pursuit of freedom. "Initiate Phase 1, Eleanor commanded, her voice steady and resolute. The Heart of Orion hummed to life, its engines roaring with an intensity that reverberated across the landscape. The ground beneath her feet vibrated in response, as if acknowledging the magnitude of what was to come. Above, the Zalthar fleet began to shift, their movements precise and calculated. They believed themselves to be the harbingers of fate, the arbiters of cosmic justice. But in this moment, as humanity's greatest minds and bravest hearts coalesced into a singular force, the Zalthar's facade of invincibility began to crack. Across the human coalition, ships of varying designs and sizes synchronized their efforts, a testament to the diversity and ingenuity of their creators. From the sleek, agile fighters crafted in the orbital shipyards of Mars to the robust, heavily armored behemoths forged in the depths of Earth's own mantle, each vessel was a unique expression of human creativity and resilience. "Deploy the Obsidian Protocol," Eleanor ordered, her gaze never wavering from the enemy fleet. This was humanity's ace, a secret weapon developed in the shadows of desperation and hope. The Obsidian Protocol, an advanced system of resonant frequencies and quantum entanglements, was the brainchild of Dr. Aiko Tanaka, a brilliant physicist whose theories had once been dismissed as impossible dreams. As the protocol activated, a lattice of shimmering energy enveloped the human ships, a protective cocoon that distorted space and time. The Zalthar, witnessing this spectacle, faltered. Their sensors, designed to penetrate even the most advanced cloaking technologies, found themselves confounded. The humans had turned the very fabric of the universe against them. Now, Eleanor whispered, signaling the commencement of the counterattack. The heart of Orion surged forward, joined by its companions in a symphony of propulsion and purpose. In perfect harmony, they wove through the enemy lines, their every movement a dance of precision and defiance. The Zalthar, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves ensnared in a web of their own making. The humans, with their unpredictable tactics and relentless spirit, were not the prey they had anticipated. Instead, they had become the hunters, turning the tables with an audacity that was as terrifying as it was awe-inspiring. Inside the control room of the Zalthar flagship, Admiral Catharn watched in disbelief as his fleet struggled against the human onslaught. The humans, with their primitive origins and chaotic tendencies, had achieved the unthinkable. They had harnessed the very essence of the universe, bending it to their will in a display of raw, unbridled potential. "We underestimated them," Catharn admitted, his voice tinged with a grudging respect. The words were bitter on his tongue, a recognition of a fatal error that would haunt the annals of Zalthar history. Their spirit, their ingenuity, it defies logic. As the battle raged on, the humans pressed their advantage, coordinated strikes dismantling the Zalthar fleet with surgical precision. It was a testament to the unity that had been forged in the fires of adversity. The once divided factions of Earth, Mars, and the colonies had set aside their differences to face this existential threat as one. Eleanor, at the helm of the heart of Orion, felt the weight of history upon her shoulders. This was more than a battle for survival, it was a declaration of humanity's place among the stars. With each victory, with each Zalthar ship that succumbed to their might, the legacy of Earth grew brighter. "Captain, the Zalthar defenses are collapsing," Arjun reported, his voice carrying the thrill of the moment. "They're retreating." A cheer erupted across the fleet, a chorus of joy and relief that resonated through the cosmos. Eleanor allowed herself a brief smile, the culmination of years of struggle and sacrifice. "We've done it," she murmured, her heart swelling with pride. But even as the Zalthar forces began their hasty withdrawal, Eleanor knew that the true victory lay not in their defeat, but in the indomitable spirit that had brought them to this point. Humanity had proven that it was not the tools of war that defined them, but the resolve to wield them in defense of their ideals. On the surface of New Terra, the settlers emerged from their shelters, their eyes wide with wonder as they witnessed the retreat of their oppressors. The sky, once a harbinger of doom, now heralded a new dawn. Children pointed at the retreating ships, their imaginations sparked by the stories that would be told for generations. As the last of the Zalthar ships vanished into the depths of space, Eleanor took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. It was a journey marked by sacrifice, by the courage of countless individuals who had dared to dream of a future free from tyranny. In the quiet that followed the storm, a profound truth settled within her. Humanity's greatest strength was not in its technology, nor its strategic prowess. It was in the capacity to dream, to imagine a world beyond the confines of the present. To push the boundaries of what was possible, driven by the unyielding belief that the stars belonged to them as much as to any other race. Eleanor knew that this victory was not the end, but a beginning. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges yet to be faced. But as the humans stood united under the vast, infinite sky, they carried with them the knowledge that they were capable of anything they set their minds to. For the Zalthar, the lesson was a harsh one. They had learned that humanity was not to be trifled with, that their spirit was as vast as the universe itself. And while they retreated to lick their wounds and reassess their strategies, the humans celebrated a new era of hope and possibility. In the heart of Orion, Eleanor gazed out at the stars, a silent witness to their victory. She felt the weight of countless generations rest upon her, a legacy of exploration and survival that transcended the boundaries of time and space. As the sun rose, casting its golden light across New Terra, Eleanor knew that the human journey was far from over. They would continue to explore, to innovate, and to inspire. And wherever they went, They would carry the spirit of this moment with them, a beacon of hope in an ever-expanding universe. With a final glance at the stars, Eleanor turned away, her heart filled with the knowledge that humanity's greatest triumph was not in the victory itself, but in the realization that they were truly, undeniably, and magnificently human. And that, she knew, was the most powerful force in the universe. The dust of the battlefield had yet to settle when the sun began its slow descent over the horizon of the once contested planet of Aloria. Its golden rays filtered through the curling smoke, casting an ethereal glow over the remnants of the conflict. Humanity had emerged victorious, and for the first time, their disparate voices harmonized into a single, resonant chord that echoed across the galaxy. The air was thick with the mingled scents of charred metal and scorched earth, but beneath it lay a richer aroma, the unmistakable scent of freedom. As the last of the enemy ships limped away, the humans stood tall, their silhouettes stark against the dimming light. They were weary, their bodies battered and bruised, but their spirits soared with the knowledge of what they had accomplished. General Marcus Kane surveyed the scene, his eyes lingering on the faces of his people. Each bore the marks of battle, yet their gazes held a fierce, unyielding light. He had led them through the storm, and now he stood on the precipice of a new dawn. The war had tested his resolve, reshaped his understanding of leadership, and defined what it truly meant to be human. Kane's thoughts drifted to the allies they had gained along the way, those who had once been adversaries but had come to recognize the indomitable spirit of humanity. Among them was Alara, the enigmatic diplomat from the Zern Collective, who had risked her own position to stand with the humans. Her presence had been a beacon of hope in the darkest times, and as she approached him now, her eyes reflected a deep, mutual respect. "You did it, Marcus," she said, her voice a soft melody amidst the chaos. "Your people have proven what I hoped they would, a force for change, driven by a will that refuses to be extinguished." Kane nodded, his expression one of gratitude tempered by the weight of the journey. "We couldn't have done it without you, Alara. Your guidance showed us the paths we might not have seen." Alara's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Perhaps, but it was your determination that paved the way. Humanity has shown the galaxy a new way forward, a path not defined by conquest, but by cooperation and unity." Nearby, Captain Leona Reyes knelt beside a group of soldiers, her attention divided between tending to their wounds and sharing words of encouragement. Her journey had been one of discovery, of learning to navigate the delicate balance between duty and compassion. She had forged bonds with her crew that transcended the boundaries of rank and protocol, and now she watched as they embraced their shared victory. Reyes rose to her feet and joined Kane and Alara, her eyes bright with determination. "This is just the beginning. We have a chance to build something lasting, something that can withstand the tests of time." Kane nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "A chance to redefine what it means to be a part of this universe. We've proven that we're more than the sum of our parts, more than the struggles that have shaped us." As the remnants of the enemy scattered, the humans began to rebuild, not only the structures that had been destroyed but the very foundations of their place in the cosmos. Across the galaxy, the news of their victory spread like wildfire, a testament to their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unwavering hope. In the heart of the human settlement on Aloria, a monument was erected, a testament to the unity and sacrifice that had led to this moment. It stood tall and proud, a beacon of light and a reminder of the cost of freedom. Inscribed upon it were the words that had become their mantra: in unity, strength. In hope, the future. The impact of humanity's victory rippled across the stars. Once hostile factions began to reconsider their stances, inspired by the humans' ability to transcend their limitations and unite against a common threat. Alliances were forged, not through coercion or fear, but through shared visions and mutual respect. The corporate conglomerates that had once sought to exploit Aloria's rich resources for their own gain found themselves at a crossroads. Under the careful diplomacy of Alara and the steadfast resolve of the humans, they were brought into a new fold, one where profit was not the only measure of success, and where sustainable partnerships became the currency of the future. For the first time, the galaxy saw the potential of humanity not as conquerors but as stewards, caretakers of a shared destiny. Their victory had sparked a revolution of thought, one that transcended borders and bridged cultures. The humans had not merely survived, they had thrived, and in doing so, they had set a precedent for generations to come. Amidst the rebuilding efforts, Kane found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The faces of friends and allies, some lost, some found, drifted through his mind like ghosts. Each had played a part in this grand tapestry, each had contributed a thread to the rich fabric of their shared history. Reyes, ever the pragmatist, joined him in silent contemplation. "It's strange, isn't it?" she mused. "How much we've changed, how far we've come." Kane smiled, a quiet warmth in his gaze. "Change is the only constant, Captain. And we've shown that we're capable of adapting, of evolving. We've taken the first step, but there are many more to follow." Reyes nodded, understanding the truth of his words. "Whatever the future holds, we'll face it together. That's what makes us strong." As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the humans continued to build upon the foundations of their victory. New ships were constructed, not for war but for exploration and discovery. The stars that had once seemed so distant now beckoned with the promise of new horizons. Alara returned to the Zern Collective, her heart full of hope and her mind brimming with possibilities. She had witnessed the transformation of humanity firsthand, and she carried their story with her as a testament to the power of change. Back on Aloria, the landscape slowly healed, its scars a reminder of the past but also a testament to resilience. The humans, ever resourceful, found ways to cultivate the once barren land, turning it into a thriving ecosystem. They had learned to nurture, to create, to build a future not only for themselves but for all who called this galaxy home. As Kane watched the sun rise on a new day, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey had been arduous, the path fraught with challenges, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. The galaxy had been forever changed by humanity's victory, and in turn, humanity had changed the galaxy. They had shown that even in the face of insurmountable odds, there was always hope, always a way forward. And so, the humans continued their journey, guided by the stars and the light of their own indomitable spirit. They were pioneers, explorers, and dreamers, and as long as there were stars to reach for, they would never stop striving for a better tomorrow. In the end, it was not just a victory for humanity, but a victory for all who dared to dream of a brighter future. In the vast, uncharted expanse of space, the humans had found their place, not as conquerors, but as part of a grand, cosmic tapestry, a testament to the power of unity, hope, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Together, they had forged a new path, one that would lead to endless possibilities and boundless horizons. And as the stars shone brightly in the night sky, they knew that this was only the beginning of their journey, a journey that would continue to inspire and ignite the hearts of countless generations to come.